Okay, so your IMDb credits have other things. You've got Jesus Town, Elder, Independent Lens, Second to None. You help a believer. Anything you want to say about those before we talk?
Elder is a film I'm very proud of, and I produced that. And that's a story that Janaea Gaudet, a very brilliant filmmaker, directed. And it is about a gay Mormon missionary who falls in love while he's on his mission in Italy. And it's this beautiful, heartwarming story that we told. And it also played at Tribeca, and it was a New York Times film. And it's a beautiful, heartwarming story. And again, it's also that same damn theme of mine of following faith and belief and deception. And, the story essentially is, and that, I think you can find that online. That's the New York Times, on the New York Times website. It was part of the Op Docs. And it's this gorgeous, really gorgeous story about a guy named Tom Clark who falls in love with an Italian communist named Gianni on his mission. And I met Tom at a party, and he told this story. And you know how parties are, people chatting and everyone's talking and nobody gets a word in edgewise. He had an audience of probably 15, 20 people. And I was at a good friend's house, Allison and Franklin. And he just sat on the porch and told this story for like 20, 30 minutes to a rapt audience. And I mean, there were tears in people's eyes after he told the story. And I thought, my God, I have to be able to tell this documentary. But how do you tell a documentary without footage? What do I just have him say it? I went up and asked him, and he goes, I have a bunch of 8mm footage of my mission. And so he unearthed this old 8mm footage, and then we were able to put that in the film. I love that story. Very happy to be a part of it. I produced and shot it. And very happy. So that's a beautiful film, and again along the same themes. And then I produced a film called Jesus Town that I know a director who was making a film about a small town in Oklahoma that puts on the largest passion play in America in a buffalo pasture. They put on this big Christ pageant, and the lead, the gentleman who is playing Jesus, is a Buddhist, but doesn't tell anyone. So I, of course, found that fit in my theme of movies. So I came on as a producer, and I helped them raise the money and helped them get it done. And it played in the UK and Showtime, and it's on Netflix as well. I don't love that film. I got to be honest. It's okay. It's a very unique and different documentary. And so that's good. That was a good one.
And you helped with Believer, which is
a
little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I field produced. So, I helped them out when they came here to Utah. And that, man, I love that movie. Those two, and I talk about how it took me years to make these movies. Those guys made an amazing film in a short period of time. How they did it, I don't know. That's just pure talent. Like, I make up for my lack of talent with just nights and weekends working my ass off. And really, like, I like to work. I'm persistent in my work. I will do something until I'm certain of it. And I think it is because there are individuals out there who have much better talent, and I make it up in perspiration where they have, inspiration. Those two, just talented. Just
for those who don't know, Believer is the documentary that stars Dan Reynolds, the lead singer for Imagine Dragons, and it talks about his journey. It's sort of, the film was made in less than a year's time from start to finish, and it basically chronicles his journey as a Mormon rock star to become an LGBT ally. Tyler Glenn's in it. I have a bit of a role in it. The Encircle House is in it. A little bit of Mama Dragon's action in it, and it culminates in, the film made it into the Sundance Film Festival, and it's been sold to HBO, and the film is going to be released in June, as I understand it, and played all over the world. And that's why I was at Sundance Film Festival a few months back, to be able to experience, because it made it into the Sundance Film Festival, which is cool.
It's a great film.
And it's coming to Tribeca
Oh, is it?
It is going to be in Tribeca.
That's great. It's a good film, man. I mean, really, like, that is a very, very well put together film. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, people who turn their term paper in too quickly, those guys finish that edit in no time. And usually what suffers in a short period is the editing. And that didn't suffer. The editing was really well done. I mean, they really knocked it out of the park with that film. And I'm proud for my small role in whatever I could do.
And that movie has already made an impact. If you saw that the LDS Church announced its participation in the formation of sort of a commission on suicide, it's no coincidence, in my view, that commission on suicide was announced the weekend or the days prior to the opening of the Sundance Film Festival this year. And it definitely deals with themes of religiosity, LGBT, suicide. And it has already made an impact within the LDS Church, and I think it's going to even make a bigger impact within Mormonism in the world around, and it's the themes are broader than just Mormonism. Yeah. They're broader than just LGBT. It touches even broader themes of just shame around sexuality and religious shame and how that impacts people's mental health and even desire to live. And
outside of that, it's a good story, and it's also about just being an artist. What's it like to be an artist, and what do you do with that, and how difficult it can be to just write music, and how, again, there are moments in that scene, in that film, when you are in his living room as he's writing music, and that's a place where you shouldn't be, and here we are in that place, and that's the beauty of documentary film. It's really a golden time for documentary. I mean, I'm biased naturally, but I dare say the most innovative storytelling being done right now is in the nonfiction realm, because it allows you the opportunity to really reinvent the format. There are documentary films out there that are just completely different from any other films you'd see. Films like documentaries like Stories We Tell, that just completely turns documentary on its ears and makes you question documentary. Films like the Banksy film, Exit Through the Gift Shop. I mean, that film was that's an amazing movie. Man on Wire, that's an amazing film. These films that really just don't follow that boy meets girl, boy loses girl format, and really is able to shake it up. And nonfiction filmmakers are really pushing the boundaries nowadays and telling some great stories.
We have Savannah, who is in Believer.
Yes.
She's tuned into this interview.
I love Savannah.
She says hi from Savannah. She's logged in with Heather, her mother's account. So, hi, Savannah.
Savannah is
Thanks for
cool.
joining us.
I've met her a number of times, and she is the sweetest thing. Man, these youth, John DeLynn, that we're seeing this last week, we're seeing these people march and these kids march. We're seeing such a beautiful period of these young individuals who are saying, I have a voice, and Savannah is one of them. And it's so beautiful. It's so amazing, because we, older generation, have so easily typecast these kids as, oh, they're lazy and they're looking at their cell phones all the time and they don't go out and play. But man, they are showing something. They are doing something right now. And Savannah's one of them. Kudos to her.
Absolutely. One comment from another listener. He writes, this is Mary. She writes, I'm so glad I decided to take a look at Facebook, or would have missed this interview. Love this interview. Can't wait to see all his work. So
thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary, for tuning in. So Tyler Measom, talk to us just briefly about this MTV documentary. Many of us grew up watching MTV. It was a formative part of our upbringing. Dire Straits and Sting and the Police and Michael Jackson and Thriller. And for many of us, MTV sort of defined our adolescence.
Right.
So tell us who's some of the big names you've interviewed and what it's like. Tell us who's sponsoring this this film and kind of what we can expect to hear about it.
After An Honest Liar, I still didn't know what to do. I'd traveled the world with that film and had a great time, won a lot of awards, et cetera, and still didn't know what I wanted to do. And then one day, a friend of mine, a friend of a friend named Patrick Waldrop, and Patrick was a former Utah boy, and he's living in LA. He came to me and he said, I want to make a documentary about MTV, the birth of MTV. And Patrick's genius. He'd never made a film before. He'd been a part of a smaller film called Killer at Large. And he'd done a lot of stuff, but frankly, he had no reason to be making a documentary about the biggest pop cultural event in history, MTV. But by God, he just threw himself in and said, I want to make this film. And he started collecting interviews, and he recognized that he needed, a partner on it. He came to me and he said, Tyler, do you want to do this film? And I hemmed and hawed and thought about it for about 6 weeks, maybe more. Because look, I have a lot of people come up and say, you should make a movie about this, or you should make a film. And look, I love to make more stories, but again, you lock yourself into a documentary. You live above the store.
It's a 2 or 3 year commitment for you, right?
And at some point you're going to hate that damn movie and you're going to be tired of it. And if you don't love it, and if you don't have the passion enough to see it through, and at the onset of making a film, if you don't believe A, that you can raise money for it, B, that it's going to be commercial, C, that you're going to have access, D, that you're going to be able to finish this movie, and E, that anyone's going to give a crap about it, don't start it. Don't even start it. If you can't see yourself still making it 2 years from now, don't do it. So I had to, weigh that and say, do I want to tell this story? I didn't have MTV as a child. Again, I didn't have cable. I didn't really watch MTV, and it was forbidden fruit for me anyways. But after researching it, I realized, of course, let's make a documentary about MTV and how MTV in the 80s affected us. Now, people out there like Savannah, cute little Savannah, she has no idea what MTV was to our generation. MTV in the 80s, in the early mid 80s, and even well into the 90s or into the early 90s, was everything. MTV in 1984 was the pop cultural event worldwide. It is what we talked about. It is how we got our news. How MTV brought cool to Provo is what it did. It was everything. And the effects of MTV still reach today, whether it's political, music, sharing media and content. And so we wanted to tell this grand story of how MTV, this early startup, got off the ground. And this is something of a departure from my other films, the theme of belief and deception. But it was a fun one.
How do you pass up MTV?
Right. So we started filming it. We started making it, and then we started interviewing the founders and some rock stars. And it was very difficult to get to some of these rock stars to talk about it because they have a firewall of agents and managers whose sole purpose is to keep kids like me away. But eventually, our first big interview was Sting.
The
Sting. And he was amazing and wonderful and gave a great interview. This is also a very different film for me in that, the films before it, I got to know the subjects. Like I spent years with James Randi. I cared for the kids in Sons of Perdition. This one's like, hey, how are you doing, Sting? Nice to meet you. Sit down, talk to him for an hour, and then they leave, and you don't get to see Sting again. So it's a very different kind of film, but it's this, it's a shorter, condensed, I have to get this person to share things with me and to empathize and to care about me. It's very interesting to kind of have that thrust into you. So we talked to the founders. We talked to rock stars. I mean, goodness, at this point now we've talked to
Pat Benatar.
Bret Michaels, Nancy Wilson. Tyler Glenn was in it, yes.
Nancy Wilson from Heart.
Who is rad. Bret Michaels was fun. He was great.
Tell us who he's with.
It was Poison.
Poison, right, yeah.
But in addition to a lot of the rock stars, and unfortunately I'm forgetting a lot of them right now, I think the founders were the interesting ones. These guys who took a chance to do this, television channel and get it off the ground. It's fascinating.
What about the early VJs? Did you get any of the VJs?
Yeah, I talked to oh goodness, of course my mind slips. Alan Hunter and Mark Goodman.
There was a female.
There were a couple of females. Yeah, there was. See, why it's cold. I'm blaming it on. Yeah. Of course, I lived it for years, and I forget her name.
So the VJs, the founders,
Jesus.
and a bunch of rock stars.
Can't believe
Martha?
Martha Quinn.
Okay.
Martha Quinn has passed. She won't be in it for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
And J.G. Jackson was another original, and he's no longer with us. But we've talked with every one of the founders. We've talked to record label executives, and we've built this story of not just MTV, but cable television, and the music, the history of music on television, and the history of film. It is now in post-production. A&E.
Susan's asking Julie Brown. Was it Downtown Julie Brown?
Julie Brown.
Did you get her?
Downtown Julie Brown, I did. She wasn't one of the originals, but we did get Julie Brown.
And Lisa Durchee's asking Kurt Lauder.
Kurt Lauder, we haven't talked to yet, but we will. Talk to Tabitha Soren.
Okay.
She's wonderful. We're just telling this big, huge tale of MTV, and mostly in the 80s, how MTV came to be. So A&E purchased the film, and they paid for it, which is nice.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So it is bird in the hand with that one. We took the money in advance, and it will play probably in the fall. It'll do the festival circuit.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're almost done?
Yeah. It's been years, so it better be
okay.
almost done.
Rick Bennett, he writes, when you said Martha Quinn passed, he thought you meant she passed away.
No, I shouldn't say that. She passed on being in the
clarified.
film, unfortunately. I know Rick. Rick's a good fella.
Yeah. I think
Rick
he
knows
does
the
ESPN
secret.
stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick. Good to see you.
Rick knows the secret. He does a cool little podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's a cool deal, MTV. So is now the time for the big reveal?
We can. I think, I do think that there is
This
something.
is big news, everybody. So
Well, I want to say something about just like the documentary field and like Utah, because we have a really strong documentary community here in the state of Utah, insanely strong if you compare it to the markets outside of New York and LA. I think Utah has the strongest documentary community. We have these amazing filmmakers who are making amazing films, and we have the support of the state and of the Film Commission and of the Film Center and Sundance. And there's these filmmakers, and I love and know and care and work with most of them here in this state. And a lot of them are either of LDS or have left the faith. And I just think there's this element that when you're raised as a Mormon, you're taught to get out of your comfort zone. And also you're taught to, if you believe in something, to evangelize, to tell. And we have this community of filmmakers.
And we love stories, by the way.
We love stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love telling stories.
General
we love
conference
hearing stories. Right.
Sunday school stories.
Right.
Fast and testimony stories.
And history. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking
And history.
and
Yeah,
history,
yeah.
and we're imbued with this need to record what is happening in your life.
And we're taught to love truth.
Right. And so,
Why'd you smile?
I was just
Truth.
We
do love truth.
We love truth. We love telling stories, and we are taught to evangelize. So you put all those things together, and you have this core of amazing filmmakers who just are passionate about their craft. And there's so many great filmmakers in this state, and probably one of the best film makers, producers in America is Carolyn Dreyfus. She's right here in this state. And you've got such great filmmakers like Jenny McKenzie and Erica Cohen and Andrew James and Torben Bernard and Holly Tuckett and Erica and Chantel Squires and all of these amazing doc filmmakers. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anyone, because there are great filmmakers out there who just throw themselves in a story. And I do believe it is because they were raised as LDS or are currently LDS. And that not just doc makers. I think there's also good narrative filmmakers as well, but there's actually just good artists. Like if you look at the music community that comes out of Mormonism and the film community and dance and literature, there is really this, like, it's kind of beautiful that a conservative religion nourishes the artistic community so much.
And you're making me think of something. I remember attending Sunstone back in like 2004, and I remember them asking, will Mormons, there's sort of like, well, Jews created great art, the great filmmakers, great authors, great artists were Jewish, and I remember even as late as 2004, 2005, people were asking, well, can Mormons ever create good art? Or are Mormons capable of being truly great artists? And since then, like you mentioned in literature, how many how many
books.
famous Mormon authors are there now?
Right.
Or musicians. We've got Neon Trees. We've got Imagine Dragons.
Yeah.
Some would say that's not great art, but I mean, when you have global recognition of talent, you're great.
Yeah.
By definition.
Yeah.
You
and artists just of
painters
and sculptors, and I know so many great ones here in the state.
Sculptors, absolutely,
and they're really it's really
painters,
amazing. And you saw this like rise of these BYU filmmakers who came out of BYU Film School and were making great movies. Like Jared Hess, and his wife Jerusa, and Ryan Little, and Adam Abel, and these great filmmakers who really just love telling stories and love making art and are able to be nourished by it. And I think the state of Utah actually really does a lot to help the local filmmaker.
And I don't know if this is tied to the theme, but in addition to Sundance, one of my favorite entities on the planet is the Broadway Theater in downtown Salt Lake City.
Right.
That is such a gift.
What a great
Margie and I
theater.
love Broadway.
Yeah, and I'm on the
board. Tell the
board.
listeners about Broadway.
I'm on the board of the Broadway Theater.
What is it?
Oh, it's the local independent theater. And it's a 4-screen theater with probably the best concessions.
Best concessions
totally.
in the world.
Yeah, and they show great films, documentaries and independent films and art films and foreign films, and you don't get that anywhere else.
Local films, do they
occasionally,
ever show?
occasionally if they're, and I know that they showed it on a Slayer. It ran there for like 6 weeks. So they showed Sons of Perdition, and then the Tower, of course, is a gem. So we're very lucky.
I've never been to the Tower.
Oh, you got to go to the Tower. And then we're very lucky to have the Utah Film Center. It's Geraldine's. She founded it. Geraldine Dreyfus founded it. Elizabeth Nebaker runs it, and Patrick Hubley. And
what do they do?
They show documentaries about once or twice a week. They'll show documentaries. And
Where?
They're FREE, John.
Where?
The Bravenel Hall, or what's the theater on 3rd? That's where they showed Believer. They show films there all the time. They show great docs. The Eccles. And they show them at the library.
They show documentaries?
How do you not know this?
How do I not know this?
How do you not know
I don't know this.
They show amazing films. They bring in documentaries. Last week they showed Dolores. This week they're showing, I forget, but they're showing Andrew James film, Street Fighting Men.
Is there a website?
Yeah,
What's it called?
UtahFilmCenter.org.
Utah Film Center.
Yeah, they show amazing, and they're free.
I'm going to go get on their mailing list.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you should get the emails. Okay. You totally should get the emails. They're great films. And that's the one, like, when they showed it on a Slayer and Doug Fabrizio, that was part of the Film Center.
I'm signing up.
Yeah, you are.
Right now, like literally right now.
Look at you.
Okay, so Utah Filmmaking, that was a precursor to your new project?
Well, I vowed that I wasn't going to have a lapse between films. The only thing harder than making a film is not making a film. So I decided I'm not going to wait for the next film and have this lull. So whilst in the middle of post-production on the MTV film, which is tentatively called Living in Stereo, and I'm sure you'll hear about it at some point, I decided I had a friend, actually Doug Fabrizio. He came to me and he said, Tyler, there's a story that you should do. This is an amazing film. And he gave me a book called The Poet and the Murderer. And The Poet and the Murderer is about Mark William Hofmann and his forging of the Emily Dickinson poem. And, I grew up in Utah. I knew a little bit about Mark Hofmann, but I was 15 when it occurred, 14. And I had Becky Fox on my mind, not what was happening in Salt Lake. So I read this book and I couldn't believe the amazing story of Mark Hofmann. Now, for those who don't know, Mark Hofmann, and I dare say most of the people who are listening to this know about Mark Hofmann. Mark Hofmann was the greatest document forger of all time. And here in Salt Lake in the mid-'80s, Mark Hofmann forged literally hundreds of historical documents. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Emily Dickinson, Mark Twain, Jim Bridger, the list goes on and on. But Mark Hofmann also forged documents from church history, Joseph Smith letters, Martin Harris letters. He forged many, many documents, and many of these documents he sold to the Mormon Church, including one called the Salamander Letter, which questioned the actual origins of the Mormon faith, that said that instead of an angel visiting Joseph Smith, he was instead visited by a white salamander. And throughout these forgeries, Mark Hofmann was never revealed to be a forger. Every single one of these documents, aside from a couple, were tested and verified as genuine by historians, by Sotheby's, by document experts, by the FBI. And at one point, in October 15th, 1985, Mark Hofmann then planted 2 pipe bombs and killed 2 individuals, innocent individuals. And the next day, a pipe bomb exploded in Mark Hofmann's car, and he survived it. But that then set forth this long investigation into who the bomber was, and also Mark Hofmann being a forger. Now, this story has been told numerous times in literature. Mormon Murders is a book. The Salamander Letters is another one. Victims is another book. The Poet and the Murderer, as I mentioned. I'm sure I'm forgetting others. There's one called The Hoax, or Hoaxes, which has a chapter dedicated to it. It's been recounted a number of times. However, it has never been told outside of some really terrible television documentaries, like investigative or detectives or whatever. It's never been told in feature films. So I elected at that point to research this story once Doug Fabrizio gave me that book. And I wanted to make the film. And then there was a lull in the MTV film. And one day I just said, what the hell am I waiting for? I'd researched for a year. What the hell am I waiting for? Someone to give me permission to do it? And I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to start shooting. So I called up a gentleman who was involved in it, Mr. Brent Ashworth, and I said, I want to come down and film you. And he said, great. Yeah, come down. I've got a box full of Hofmann documentaries or documents. And I filmed him for a day. And I enlisted the support of some great friends, so Rob Mirmont and Don Garrett, and they came down and helped me film it. And then I filmed Kurt Bench. And then I started calling people, and I got access to every single person who was involved in the Hofmann story. And since that time, I have collected a great number of interviews, and I have collected a great archival stash of Mark Hofmann's materials, forgeries, photos, memos, videos, news, and I am now fully engaged in the production of a film tentatively called Forger, about the greatest documentary forger of all time and double murderer Mark William Hofmann. You want more?
No, that's perfect. So I hope everyone understands how important this is. So, the story of Mark Hofmann needs to be told. It's a fascinating story. It's a gripping story. It's an important story. It's a relevant story, even to us today. And so now we've got one of our, in my view, greatest filmmakers on the scene. And so it needs our support. So Tyler, how can people support this and make sure it happens?
Well, I really want to make this a Utah All-Star team. And the Utah Film Commission, Virginia Pierce, through the Utah legislature, has agreed to give it a 20% discount. We got the tax rebate, so I get 20% back in everything that we spend on the film here in the state of Utah. This is a Utah story. We want to make it in Utah. We want to keep it in Utah. We want to utilize the talents and skills of these Utah filmmakers and keep it as a Utah story. So I have great producers on the project. Dwayne Anderson, who's made a number of really great films and teaches at UVU. Rick Bennett came in very early and helped out. JJ Neward. And a producer who just came on board is Mr. Jared Hess, who, as you know, is the Utah Golden Boy. He made Napoleon Dynamite,
Nacho Libre,
and Masterminds, and there's more.
Gentleman
Broncos, Don Verdeen.
Yep.
And then he's made a ton of like television. Jared is a treasure, man. The guy is so smart and so funny and so connected, and loves this story. Absolutely loves it. And I talked to him about it, and he said, "I'm in, totally in." And he's been an amazing producer. And then, of course, Geraldine Dreyfus, who is the Academy Award-winning producer of a number of amazing documentaries. She was a part of Icarus that just won the Academy Award this last month. She's made dozens and dozens of films, and she's a champion of it. So we are now imbued in making this a long format and very interesting story that tells about Mark Hofmann, about his forgeries, about his involvement with the Mormon Church, how the Mormon Church bought, and some people say hid, these documents. It will touch on the history of the Mormon faith, a little bit about, Joseph Smith, and, how he corresponds in some ways to Mark Hofmann. We have access to everyone who's involved in the story, from Kurt Bench, who was part of Benchmark's books, and actually Rick Turley, who was a part of the story. He was the church historian at the time. He wrote the book Victims, and he is now the head of the PR department for the church. He's actually very excited to see this made by Utah filmmakers. But also we have D. Michael Quinn, Sandra Tanner, whose husband Gerald was the only person who said that the salamander letter isn't true, isn't genuine. We have the prosecutors. We have an awesome guy by the name of Jerry D'Elia, who was the lead prosecutor, this firebrand Catholic who took down Mark Hofmann. George Throckmorton, who was the chief forensic investigator who discovered that these were forgeries. I mean, this story, man, it is murder and greed and history and in deceit and deception and mayhem. It is unbelievable, this tale. And it will reveal secrets, and it will show deceptions, and it will just be an amazing film. Now, I'm not going to make some anti-Mormon film. I'm going to say that, it's just a great story outside of that. And it will cover the bases and belief of one side and the other side of what happened. And we are trying to make this film, and we're trying to get it off the ground. And as you know, as everyone knows, look, more movies take money to make. And we are hoping we need to continue filming this. And I've had some wonderful support early, but anyone who wants to help out and wants to contribute to the making of this film, whether small or large, we welcome it. It is an important story, one that needs to be told by really great filmmakers that, not me, I'm not, but really great and important people like Jared and Geraldine. And there is a website that one can go to find out more information.
What is that website?
That website on the internets is forgerfilm.com. And on forgerfilm.com, you can learn a little bit more about the film. You can see some of the players involved. You can see some of the photos. And also there's a cute little button that says DONATE that one could donate. Now, look, if you have money, folks out there listening, contribute to Mormon Stories. This does great work. John and his team do amazing stuff. Give them your support, because what they do is much more important than our little movie-making endeavor. But if you have a little extra, this is an important story. And it's not just important in the state of Utah. The world we live in now is rife with deceit. We have, whatever your political carings are, we have a president who routinely lies. We have forgeries in the form of memes, for God's sakes. We have fake news that permeates our society. There are snakes in the grass everywhere. whether they're politicians, businessmen, churches, or snake oil salesmen. And this film tells the story of possibly the greatest deceiver of all time, a man who fooled everyone, and did it coldly and callously. And in this world, when truth is at a premium, we need a film that will help us learn a little bit more and examine a little bit more and look inwards and saying, where am I being deceived by a smooth talking snake oil salesman? And we hope that this film does that. The hope is that we can continue shooting and make it a larger piece, a possible series.
Like a multi-hour series.
Like a multi-hour series. There's a great series on Netflix right now called Wild Wild Country. That is pretty rad.
I started watching it.
It's pretty rad.
It's about Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, the guru who went to Portland or Oregon,
right,
and started a commune.
It's pretty good,
religious commune.
It's not perfect. There's things I'll pick out, but man, it was good.
So you have that level of ambition for
the story warrants it.
Yeah.
The story is truly remarkable. And I know that a lot of filmmakers and a lot of people have tried to make this story in the past. We've worked very hard to get to a point where we are fully engaged in the production of it. There's no turning back now. We are making this. And this is, I can't wait to tell this film. I am so lucky, fortunate to be able to have made a conscious choice in my life to only choose projects that I love, only choose projects that I want to do. And this project, man, I'm so fortunate to be able to live this story and to be able to tell it.
Well, we're super excited that you're doing it. So everyone out there who wants to support this film and make it happen, go to forgerfilm.com and throw some support Tyler's way and Jared's way. And I just went to the website. It's a super pro website.
I totally built it myself.
You did?
Yeah.
Squarespace?
That's what doc makers do. They do everything.
Squarespace?
Yeah.
WordPress?
Squarespace.
Squarespace is great.
It's okay. It's all right.
This is unsolicited.
Are you trying to get Squarespace?
No,
like every other podcast.
The website looks good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So check it out. And some are wanting to know if you're going to have access to top church leaders.
Well, Rick Turley
he's pretty high up there.
He's pretty high up there, and he will tell the story and tell it, his side, and he was actually he was very open about it. Look, this morning we met with KSL, and they were like, well, we never give out Hofmann footage. We don't give out Hofmann footage. We don't give out Lafferty footage. We don't give out Bundy footage, but we trust you guys. You're going to make a great story. This is a great tale. So will we get Dallin H. Oakes or someone of the like? Is he still around?
Can't get Hinckley.
No, can't get Hinckley.
Hinckley
possibly.
would have been a good get.
Possibly. I mean, look, possibly. Look, most of the individuals who were part of this story are active LDS. Brent Ashworth, Kurt Bench, George Throckmorton. Some of them aren't. Many people had their faith shook by this incident.
Like Brent Metcalf.
Like Brent Metcalf, who will be in the film. Shannon Flynn, who will be in the film. Brent Metcalf is he is so smart, that guy. And he was very involved in Hofmann and
He hot tubbed with Mark Hofmann.
Yeah, he totally hot tubbed with Mark Hofmann. Hot tub with Hofmann. I have like this stuff of Mark Hofmann's. I have these photos and videos and things you wouldn't believe. Like the stuff I've found, the stuff I've uncovered. And Brent Metcalf will be a big part of not just on the camera, but I'm hoping to hire Brent Metcalf to be a writer on it, to be able to tell not just the Mark Hofmann story, but some of the backstory of the LDS faith, which sets up Mark Hofmann and the state of Utah. The Utah and Salt Lake in the 80s. In the 80s, the FBI labeled Utah the fraud capital of the United States. And I think there's still an element where we're seeing it today, where people in affinity fraud, we interviewed D. Michael Quinn, and he talked all about affinity fraud and how common it is here in in Utah. And again, this is what this film will hopefully stop, or these charlatans who are trying to take advantage. Snakes who lie wait in the grass. John.
Okay, so you may have unintentionally alienated a few Republican voters. We do have Mormon Stories listeners who are Republicans and who even may have voted for Trump. So let's give you a chance to win them back. Win back their support. I just asked you a hard question.
I personally don't care for Donald Trump. I don't find him to be any intellectually stimulating. I don't think I prefer people who have experience and who are well-spoken to be leaders.
But can conservatives give you money? Will you accept their money?
Yes.
Even if they don't agree with your politics?
Yes, I'm fine with Republicans. I have my family is Republicans. Many of my good friends are Republicans.
That sounds bad.
I know it does, doesn't it? I have a gay friend. I have one black friend. That's what it sounds like. I have a Republican friend. I don't mind Republicans, but I don't care.
This
for
movie
Donald
transcends politics, everyone. This movie is bigger than any president or political.
When I say Donald Trump lies, you're damn right he lies. Of course he lies. It's proven he's a constant state of liars. Who doesn't? Politicians lie.
I'm trying to help you out, man.
I'm not. I can't.
Okay.
I can't.
New topic.
I can't.
New topic.
I can't.
All right.
But I am saying, like, look, it doesn't matter if there's an R behind your name or a D behind your name or a PhD behind your name. I'm pointing at you now. There are people out there who will take advantage of you and who will lie. And I'm far from perfect, and I'm far from the harbinger of truth. But I do hate deception. I do hate out and out deceiving. And
that's what this movie's about.
I think it's about the consummate deceiver, Mark Hofmann. He was an evil man, but by and large, he was a genius. What he did, how he was able to perpetrate these lies for so long. I think the most amazing part about what Mark Hofmann did is he did it for so long and never told anyone. Never once did he say, "You wouldn't believe what I just got away with. You wouldn't believe that I just sold a document for $50,000 and it fooled the FBI." I mean, how you can keep that in for so long, I don't have it.
It's a great story.
Yep.
All right. So as a way to kind of wrap up this interview, and we want to thank everyone who's stuck with us. A lot of people had to go, but they said they're going to watch it tonight or tomorrow. Of course, we're going to release this on YouTube and on iTunes and on Android in due time. But if you had to give some closing words, number one, to aspiring documentary filmmakers / artists, what are some closing words of wisdom you would give them?
Look, being an artist, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. It's very difficult. It's hard. Making money and surviving as an artist isn't easy. But if you can get to a point where you can be an artist and every day you wake up and you say, I am going to be an artist today. And it's stupid, but every morning when I wake up and I go into my home office, I say, time to make movies. And it's still, every day when even when I'm emailing or filing my taxes or whatever, I'm making a movie. And I think you have to continue to have that passion to do it. You have to love it. You have to be able to just really want to make art. And that goes for everything. Like if you really want to do something and you really want to do it, stick to it. What I think I've been lucky in being an artist is my persistence. Having that persistence to continue and not quit and make a great film and not turn in a C- paper, to continue to love what I do, and also to be able to be forward enough to have other people believe in me. Supporters of the arts are equally as important as artists, and that's on all levels, both individual contributors, producers, or even the state legislator who continues to support local artists. That's important. Art is what makes our culture better. And the minute we stop contributing and believing in the artist, and what they can do for society is the minute that I don't want to live in that society anymore. So for any aspiring artists, you know, if you're going to do it, do it. Act as if. Be an artist. Live it, love it. And it also helps to have your friends support you in many ways.
So
not just fiscally.
Yeah. So support the arts. Be an artist if you can. Don't give up. Be tenacious.
Yeah, but you know what? Passion is contagious, John. Like, how many people don't have passion for what they do? That you know, they go to work 50 weeks out of the year, and they live for the weekends. Like, if you love it, man, and you want to tell a story, you want to paint, or you want to write, or you want to make music, God, just like if you love it so much and you're damn determined to do it, it has this enveloping feeling about it where people want to be a part of that. And if you can't drum up a passion for what you do, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, if you genuinely can't love and want to commit to being an artist or being an accountant or being I can't even think of any professions, you know, whatever project you want to do or profession you want to do. If you can't do it fully, don't do it. Find something else. Life is too short to not wake up and do something you absolutely, positively love and can contribute to the betterment of society. If that makes any sense at all.
I love it. That sounds like a testimony.
Yes.
How are you doing? I think we should end with that. So follow your passion, follow your bliss. And Tyler Measom, it's so fun for me to have you as a friend and as an artist whom I respect.
Thanks, John.
To have you on Mormon Stories.
You're a film lover, and I trust people who are cinephiles.
I sure love the Broadway.
Yeah.
And sure love the movies that they're showing there.
Yeah, same.
And yours. So check out Sons of Perdition. Check out An Honest Liar. Check out the MTV movie when it comes out. And support Forger.
Forgerfilm.com.
Forgerfilm.com. Go to forgerfilm.com and donate today and support Tyler.
Or we are looking for other producers, executive producers, or larger donations through the Utah Film Center. It's all right there. Thank you, John and Lynn. Appreciate
all right.
what you're doing.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you joined us live on Facebook, we're so grateful for everyone who gives us comments and feedback and questions. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Everyone who listens asynchronously, either on YouTube or iTunes or whatever, we're so grateful to have all the support. Everything we do here is possible by those who support the Open Stories Foundation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Your donations in the U.S. are tax deductible. We're transparent in our finances. We just released our annual financial report for 2017. You can go to openstoriesfoundation.org and see it. We disclose more information than we're required to, and that's because we're committed to financial transparency. We're also super proud that we have released publicly our sexual harassment policy. We're very eager and happy to live by and abide by ethical sexual sort of treatment of others. And feel free to check out our sexual harassment policy on openstoriesfoundation.org. And most importantly, if you really value this programming and you want to see it continue, there are lots of ways to support us. The best way is to go to mormonstories.org, click on the donate button, $10, $20, $50, $100 a month, whatever you can afford. That money goes to our staff, to Amy Grubbs, to Cody Layton, to Sharon Price, to myself, to all our expenses, to our equipment, to our bandwidth, to this office space where we now have an office space. All of that is possible through your donations. So please support us if you don't. If you do support us already, keep supporting us. You can also let people know about Mormon Stories Podcast. You can like us on Facebook, the Mormon Stories Podcast page. You can give us a positive review on the Mormon Stories Podcast page. That makes a big difference so that those baddies don't bring down our rating on Facebook. You can also give us a positive review on iTunes. That makes a big difference as well. We could really use your help there. Please follow us on Instagram, Mormon Stories, and on Twitter. And just please spread the word, because the more listeners we have grassroots, the more we're able to impact and make a difference in the world. So thanks to everyone who supports us. Tyler Measom, thanks again.
Thank you, John.
And tune in again soon for another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Take care, everybody.